Isn't that pretty, guys? Check out the light here. We're just starting to lose it.
Gold light.
We're just starting to lose the gold light here. It is pretty though, isn't it, huh? This is Joe Kersey here, YouTubers on Saturday, January 25th, 25th, around 1700 Eastern Time. I should have gotten out here just a little bit earlier to show you the light here. There's the top of the sycamore. See how over the creek valley there we're getting, that's pretty. Pay no attention to those lights there reflecting in from the house. It's been snowing most of the day. We were the recipient of a particularly heavy, isolated, just very narrow, isolated, heavy band of snow that ran just over us all the way out into the eastern side of Illinois, and kept us under snow long after the rest of the snow had stopped, at least according to the radar and things on the internet. Now we're getting a lot of blowing, of course, but it's pretty. It's not. It's. I would characterize this snow as a heavy light snow. You know, it's not. It's. You know, it's not. It's not wet. It's a. It's a.
It flows and drifts.
It's a wet snow. It's a light. It's not a powder, but it's a wet snow. But it's a light wet snow. If you get what I'm driving at. It's going to drift madly tonight. I'll be to see what it's like on the way to church tomorrow. I got to read. All right. Well, here in the fading light here, let's see if I can wipe off the front door. You can see the driveway here. You can see where I shoveled. I shoveled that about 2:30 here today, and here we are now about 5:30, and we've had a little bit more continuing snow, and now it's picked up again. You know, we're getting one of these. As I said, we're in this band of heavy snow. It's just being, well, it's just being what it is, isn't it? It's winter in Ohio, and you've got. You can see Paul's truck down there and my truck down there in the pole barn, and he's been telling me hotel stories, how they've been coping with the weather or not coping, depending on things. And I'll try to. It's all very blurry, isn't it, here? Oh, check out. Some of that's wind. But, well, it's not too bad. I'd say our total depth on the ground right now is about between 5 and 6 inches, but it's not that heavy, wet, icy, packy, downy stuff. So there we are. I haven't seen any of our wildlife today. No deer, no turkeys. Only 1 or 2 squirrels, surprisingly. You know, the squirrels are always. Well, no, they're not always out and about. You know, some years they kind of estivate, but this year, last couple of 3 years, they haven't really been estivating very much. At least the ones around here. So, I need to go rehearse my readings for tomorrow at church, and there's a. Well, I can talk to you about that perhaps a little later here when I get in. There we go. See, there's not too much to be said about this. It's pretty in a way, isn't it? You know, as long as you're safe, Thank God we're safe. Alrighty. Well, Paul's back from work, as you can see. The removal of the name tag, always good. We must maintain corporate discretion. I'm sure that at least two other of my viewers understand that. I really wasn't going to do anything today, but as I like to say, like a moth to the flame. Well, you know, this machine's sitting right next to me here in this chair, you know, and
Why give up a good time?
I hear the lure of its siren's song. Well, Paul came home today from the hotel, and he told me several accounts of various hotel-y things, and you know, briefly, the bed bug man is back.
He'll be back tomorrow.
Oh, he's going to be back tomorrow, and their plans for him are to issue him with an infrared flashlight so that he can identify the bed bugs in his materials before he unloads them into the rest of the room. He's going to be instructed to take them into the bathtub, you know, and infrared light all his stuff to see if there's any bed bugs coming in from afar. We'll see.
He has to keep the bathroom lights turned off and use the infrared light on.
Yes, well, it's an infrared light, and the bed bugs show up as red dots. So more of that, perhaps anon, in the next few days. Their infrared light that they have for the bed bugs is in addition to their woods lights that they have to make all of the cum on the bedspreads turn blue. No, it's not just cum, it's other stuff that seeps out of human beings. It shows up as blue under ultraviolet light.
That's looking for the apples also.
I don't know about the apples, but you know.
We call them apples so you don't scare the other guests.
Yes, well, before we get too far afield here, you know, and distract me from what little train of thought I have here. See? Oh, and then apparently there are a couple of these guys that come in, and they're two gay guys, and I don't know whether they're, you know, together outside of this encounter or whether they come in and meet each other, but apparently they rent the sugar daddy rents this suite for what, 3 days, 2 days?
One night.
One night, but it sounds like it's a whole orgy for like a week, given what they haul in there and consume. They run through about 3 or 4 cases of beer and a couple of 3 bottles of liquor, and the place looks like some sort of shag den by the time they get done with it. And you know, they ask for about 3 or 4 extra pillows so that they can all be propped up in the right angle, and they have to be in a certain, either, you know, one room or the other room across the hall, I guess. We won't even get into that, so they were there, and then of course the mystery of the day was this fellow that checked in 3 days ago and has just disappeared. His stuff's still in the room, right?
Yeah. Everything.
So he you know, all his stuff's still in the room.
His luggage, his laptop, the work.
But he's not been seen. He's not been seen for the last 3 days. Did he drive in?
Yeah, because we have his car.
Oh, so his car and his car is his car still out in the parking lot?
No, because he drove off.
Okay. So his car is gone and all his stuff's left in the room, and he's not been seen for 3 days. So that's a mystery. Perhaps we'll see that on Dateline or 4040 or whatever the heck sort of investigative news shows are here in a couple, 3 years.
We're still charging you on his credit card.
Well, as long as the credit card's good, I guess, hell, that's all right, isn't it? You know, you can always get it from his estate. If you can pull stuff like that, I guess there'll be money left, unless he's emptied out all the money in his estate. That reminds me of a case that happened here in Columbus a few years back, where this sort of carpet broker, a carpet broker. Well, he was a carpet broker. He lived in Worthington, and he actually drove down to my hometown, Lebanon, Ohio, and I guess to broker a deal on carpet with some store in Lebanon. And you know, Lebanon's become much more upscale since I grew up there. And so he drove down to Lebanon. Of course, he's driving back on I-71, and he pulls off. Apparently, they know he pulled off the freeway at the rest area just south of the Jeremiah Morrow Bridge on I-71, because they saw him on security cameras. And then, but his car was found. Then he left. They saw him leave, and then his car was found about a mile and a half north of the Jeremiah Morrow Bridge on the Wilmington Road exit, on the side of the road, and it was completely empty. No signs of foul play, and he's never been seen since, or heard from since. Now these things are incredibly mysterious to me. And then another case here a few years back, about the same time, interestingly, about the same time as this carpet broker's disappearance, was a lawyer, a single lawyer, probably a closeted lawyer, in Columbus, and his body was found. Was it outside the quarries, Paul, or outside, or the Shaughnessy Dam area?
Right outside.
Yeah, his car was parked outside the Shaughnessy Dam, and his body was in the car. You know, and again, no signs of foul play, but mystery still unsolved. Actually, this guy had worked with the sister of a good friend of mine who's an attorney. Actually was one of the sort of junior associates in the law firm she was with at the time. Just things happen. Well, it's a big city, first of all. Yeah.
Just dead.
And with the hotel, Paul works. I mean, these people are flying in from all over the United States and hell, even the world. So,
crap. Try dealing with Asians that cannot speak English.
Well, yes. Well, we can't speak, Mandarin either. So.
Well, they do. Flashy passports.
Yeah. Well, okay.
That's going to help.
Well, without getting into that, I think, seeing as how I have your attention, I'm going to tell you a bit of a story. Now, it's not a long story. And it's not even really necessarily a discrete story. It's a class of stories that anesthesiologists face, well, physicians face, surgeons face, patients face from time to time, and that's when you have a bowel obstruction. And well, there's generally two classes of bowel obstruction. You have the high bowel obstruction, upper GI bowel obstruction, and lower GI bowel obstruction. Well, the upper GI bowel obstruction, as you might expect, becomes obvious fairly early on. You puke, you puke, and you hurt like heck and become febrile and toxic, and you go in and you get taken care of, and that's bad enough for the anesthesiologist in terms of because these are the people that always throw up right on you when you try to put them to sleep. Those are the people you always tube awake. But then there's the lower bowel obstructions, and those things often can take place over a period of a week to 10 days or even 2 weeks, depending on how slow the bowel obstructions happened to the person, and they, you know, I mean, some of these people get used to hurting all the time and not taking a crap all the time, and you know, it's just normal to them to go 7 days without bowel movement. And so, over time, this stuff builds up, you know, backs up. It's like a, well, it's like a slowly building up beaver dam, and that creek's going to stop sometime. And I kind of like that analogy myself. And so, well, when it finally blocks up, you know, I mean, essentially, you've got an abdomen full of stool all the way up to your esophagus. Now, I'm going to digress very briefly, and then we're going to come back. Remember that, Paul? An abdomen full of stool up to the esophagus.
There's no fucking.
Oh, yes, there is. Oh, yes, there is. And I'm going to tell you this story. Another story. When I was in medical school, you know, it was summertime, and I was, first of all, I didn't have air conditioning in my apartment. And so I was delighted to be able to go over to the medical school building and study in the air conditioning. You know, I mean, it was like, it's Columbus in the summertime, guys, and it was god awful hot. You know, you're talking, you know, high 80s, low 90s, and you get in a third floor apartment. You know, it was routinely 105 in my apartment.
It's August.
Well, no, I don't. Well, it was July, August, sometime. It was, you know, yeah, and so I thought, well, I didn't want to go into where we had our little. Every student had an assigned desk in a little kind of officey area. But the guy, you know. But the guy in there that sat next to me, and he was the one that always had his finger up his nose and picked his nose. Oh, this guy was a creep and a gross creep. And I just couldn't deal sitting next to this guy while he, you know, did neurosurgery, transnasal neurosurgery. So I thought I'd go into one of the big lecture halls. Well, I went in, and there were about maybe 30 people down in the front of the lecture hall, and of course it's one of these rooms that seats like 500, 600 people, and so I just thought I'd sit down in the back a couple of rows. And it turned out it was surgery, morbidity, and mortality conference, and this was on a Saturday morning. M&M conference, morbidity and mortality. That's where, you know, all of the surgical people get together to discuss any complications or deaths on the surgical service, all surgical services that particular week. And sometimes they do it every 2 weeks, but that's the format, you know. Any serious complications, any deaths get presented and discussed. And when I came to participate in this stuff, it was called Sighs and Lies. You sigh because, well, it happened. And sometimes the whole truth isn't necessarily coming out, but everybody knows what it is. So I was fascinated by this. I didn't know anything about this at the time. You know, I was just, you know, this is like I was green at this. I didn't know what this was. And the former chairman of surgery, who is now dead, Dr. Robert Zollinger, God bless this man. What a magnificent man. What a magnificent individual. He trained an entire generation of surgeons that's trained yet an entire generation of surgeons that's yet now training another entire generation of surgeons. And he was the one that actually originally selected me for the surgical program when I applied for an internship, which was then validated by Dr. Larry Carey, who is still alive. And so I can't tell any stories about him. Well, there wouldn't be any story I'd tell him about it would be good. Well, or telling him, I'm not going to tell any story about Dr. Zollinger it isn't good either. But there was a fellow up there who was actually, well, he was a Chinese fellow. And he was actually a 7th-year surgical resident who was in thoracic surgery. For some reason, he was being grilled about this particular patient. And it seems that this patient had a, bowel operation. It's general surgery, generally. That's why it's called general surgery. Although I don't know why a thoracic surgical resident was being grilled about this. But in any case, he was. And maybe he'd been covering or something, or I don't know. So this guy had been operated on a week before, and it turned out that on Dr. Zollinger's services, everybody had to be weighed every day at 6:30 in the morning. Everybody.
Put on a scale?
Yes, daily weights. And what that tells you is it tells you a tremendous amount about their fluid balance, one way or the other, whether it's too much intravenous fluid, too little urinary output, too much urinary output, or whether they are developing a bowel obstruction and retaining fluid inside their intestines such that they gain weight. A pint's a pound the world around. A pint's a pound the world around in terms of water or fluid. And so this guy, over the course of a week after surgery, had gained 16 pounds. Now, after you have a major abdominal operation, you are supposed to, even if you're being properly hydrated and nourished with appropriate amounts of sugar and proteins and so forth, you're supposed to lose between a half a pound and a pound a day, because you're in this catabolic state. You're breaking down stuff because you're trying to heal. You've been assaulted. Somebody's chopped you open, and so you're supposed to be half a pound and a pound a day. This guy had gained 16 pounds.
That's
over the course of a week. And it turned out, of course, he had a post-op bowel obstruction, and they went in and reoperated on the guy and drained out all the fluid and sent him back up and lysed the adhesions and closed him back up, and ultimately no harm was done. But this thing should have been caught. If anything, it should have been caught at least on day 2, maybe day 3. And of course, Dr. Zollinger, and he had this very characteristic way of talking. Like, so you just thought you'd watch this man slosh around with 16 pints of fluid, warm fluid in his bowels and in his abdomen. What are you trying to do? Make a punch bowl? So I was like, what are you trying to do? Were you thinking you're going to have some sort of warm soup? Was he? And so it went on and on and on and on and on. And so, well, then when he got done with the chief surgical resident, he then had a smaller amount of time with a couple of lesser, more senior residents. They were senior residents, but lesser than the chief. And then they said, "Who's the medical student on this case? Who's the medical student on this case?" And some guy down front, stand up! Stand up! He says, stand up! Stand up! He says, what'd you think? He says, you were the one weighing this man every day. And that's true. See, when you were the medical student on the service, you were the one actually to go in and weigh these people. you were the one that had to show up, you know, before 6:30 because they had to be weighed at 6:30. So you had to show up before 6:30 and go in and haul these people out of bed and, you know, haul the scale down the hall. And if they could get up and walk, you know, cajole, badger them into getting on the scale and weigh them. The ones that were actually truly bedridden, the nurses came in and they had a hoist and weighed them. But, you know, the medical students had to weigh these people.
Shit, I thought you were saying we had to weigh the residents.
No, well, that would have been interesting too, given the amount they drank, you know. But so he says, "You were weighing him. Did you notice anything?" And of course, the guy, you know, the guy's trembling. He doesn't give a coherent answer. He says, "Do you have a dime in your pocket? Do you have a dime in your pocket?" And the medical student reaches in his pocket and says, "No, I don't have any change." And Zelig says, "It doesn't matter." He says, "Here's my credit card. You go out in that hallway." You know, there was a phone in the hallway. He says, "Here's my credit card." He says, you go to that phone in the hallway and you call your mother." He says, "Is she alive?" And the guy says, "Yes, she's alive." He says, "Are they helping you pay for your school?" The kid says, "Yes." He says, "I want you to call your mother, and I want you to go out there and tell her, you know, what a fuck up you are, and how you almost killed somebody, and what's a waste of her money to send you to medical school." And it went on and on and on. I mean, it's like on. But I'm going to tell you right now, that guy's never ever going to forget that. And I'm going to tell you, it's probably one of the last, you know, if not the last time that he ever did not pay attention to detail. And that's called surgical training. Well, now to get back to the story, you know, from wherein I digressed. You know, when you have one of these slow, low bowel obstructions, you end up basically with an entire GI tract full of warm, liquid stool. Well, actually, sometimes not all that liquid. And we had one of these guys come in, and fortunately I decided to intubate him awake. You know, normally I wouldn't intubate lower GI obstructions awake, but there was just something about this guy. First of all, I think it was the fact that his breath smelled like a septic tank, yeah. And so I intubated him awake. You know, shortly after I got the tube in, the cuff blown up, you know, this guy basically started having a series of bowel movements out of his mouth. And of course, guess where most of it landed, guys? Right on yours truly. And of course, since he's on the table and my crotch is at table level, guess what it looked like I had done? It looked like I'd taken a crap out of the front of my pants. Now, you know, that would be an anatomic, you know, abnormality, but
The guy would have been kicking back over there.
it was like flowing out. It was like flowing forth like the rivers run free there in the
Or
West.
you're standing to the side of his head.
Well, you know, I had to do stuff. You know, sometimes you got to be where you have to do the work, you know.
Yeah.
Just another joyous day in the operating room. But, you know, guess what you got to see? What I got to see was a bunch of dead bowels. Well, that's not joyous for the man involved, but when you see that black cauliflower spring forth when they lay the knife onto the abdomen and split into the peritoneum, you get this black cauliflower of dead bowel. Well, first of all, these people are incredibly sick, which means I get to do all sorts of physiologic maneuvers with fluid and acid base and drugs, which is one of the main joys of anesthesia practice. Well, at least it was then. It was for me.
Or your job, supposed to keep them alive.
That's right. or at least keep them from dying, at least while you've got your hands on them. And he made it. Now, of course, he made it. You know, he didn't have much bowel left, but he made it, and so he would. After a long, septic, tumultuous time, he actually made it out of the hospital. But it was always fun to do one of those cases because, yeah, it's just fun to do those kind of cases. So, on that note, I'm going to say bye-bye, YouTubers. Now here I'll show you Paul pondering the results of this story.
I know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Don't forget, last summer, I went in and had that big. Last summer or the summer before. They took that big thing out of me. They did a colonoscopy.
Oh, they didn't take anything out of you then. That was 5 years ago.
Now, it wasn't 5 years ago. It was just since they started every hotel.
Well, you told me they didn't take anything out of you. Well, we can get in that later. Alrighty now. Bye-bye, YouTubers.